I am really digging these My Arcade micro arcade cabinets, and I've got two more to look at. We've got Galaxian and Bad Dudes, and we're gonna check those out right now.
Don't you know that you're a grown up? No games, no puns. Not allowed if you're a grown up.
Welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John. I am a GenXGrownUp. Thanks for checking out this video and the channel. We've been looking at a lot of these handheld arcade facsimile things lately. We took a look at the arcade classics, including even the Fix-It Felix Jr. one, inspired by Wreck-It Ralph. You can take a look at that one in the link up above. But we've especially been looking at these My Arcade micro cabinets. Quite a few of those have been released now. In the first video that I looked at them, at the end of the episode, I took a trip to Walmart to pick up the remaining ones I can find, and I've been looking at those over the last couple of videos. In the most recent one, we looked at Pac-Man and Karate Champ. Those turned out to be really good, but now I have two more to look at. First up is going to be Galaxian. I love that they did Galaxian because we all know Galaxian is the kind of big brother of Galaga. Galaga gets tons and tons of love because it was by far the most popular game. But Galaxian came out first and Galaga was based on that. Galaga, in fact, is a direct sequel to Galaxian. So often you don't see Galaxian when people do handheld units like this, and I'm glad they did. So we're going to take a look at this guy. And then I'm going to take a look at Bad Dudes from Data East. Now this kind of stands out to me. When I saw they had this one, I was really surprised because all these other releases have been kind of your static one-screen arcade machines, whereas Bad Dudes is more of a side-scrolling adventure game. So how that is handled on a little handheld like this, I'm excited to see because it's going to be something different if they pull it off properly. So let's go take a look at these guys. Let's start with Galaxian. Side art is accurate and pretty. All the bezel, removable joystick, just as before. You can screw that off if you wanted. Fire button, reset, start. As with all of these, you can power it with micro USB instead of batteries if you want. Headphone jack, volume up and down, buttons there. Okay, let's peel off the fake Galaxian. Let's power it on. Yep. Give it a start. Yeah, that looks right. Galaxy really doesn't get the attention that it should. Its little brother Galaga tends to get more attention. You get Galaxian these days if it's in a, a Galaga collection and they include the predecessor Galaxian. I mean, in Galaga's defense, Galaxian certainly, you could argue is the less interesting of the two. I mean, it's just shooting aliens. You can't get capture or anything like that. I mean, they really figured out how to make Galaxian better when Galaga came out. But yeah, I mean, it's a gorgeous version of Galaxian. It's not the arcade. We pretty much have established with all of these micros, it's not arcade ROMs. It looks again to be NES ROM probably. Yeah. Ow! Game over. Yeah, it's a serviceable Galaxian, so not disappointed at all. But let's move on then and check out Bad Dudes. Now, Bad Dudes is a different story entirely because up until now, what we've had are these arcade one-screen kind of games, right? You had your Burger Time, you had your Mappy, you had Pac-Man, Dig Dug, all those one-screen things. Bad Dudes is a side-scrolling adventure game. Technically, it's Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja, but there's your Dragon Ninja, speaking of which. But they usually omit that. Most people do. But yeah, so I'm curious to see. Again, I expect it to be the NES version, but there's a lot more to this game than just a one-screen shooter. So a little bit more hardware is required. So yeah, let's find out. Yeah, again, beautiful side art. This one actually extends all the way up the concrete wall. Kind of look that was on the original cabinet. This is placed in a different location, again, because of the squat version of these cabinets, but all the bezel work. We have a jump and a punch, allegedly, is what we should have if we're playing Bad Dudes properly. All the same. Hello, there's a cat. You need to get down. As always, let's get the placeholder artwork off for a minute. Power it up. Turn it up. It looks like Bad Dudes. Start. Blake or Striker? Yeah, you couldn't choose that in the arcade game, so definitely NES. The president's been kidnapped by ninjas. Are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? I am bad enough. Do I want to? Punch, jump. Oh yeah, NES for sure. Yeah. You know, it's probably a really good NES version, but it's disappointing if you're a fan of the arcade version. That's you know, that's not the fault of this cabinet. I don't think that's the fault of it being the NES version. So you know, mechanically, it's fine. Actually, I get at least to the boss. I mean, come on. Ugh. Yeah. Hey, lady. You know, the more I play this, the better it is. The more serviceable a version of Bad Dude. There he is. He blows fire. At least he should. You know, usually I would have nunchucks by now, but not so much. Oh, I forgot about the hurricane kick. I should use that more often. Oh, last life. Let's see. Come on. Come on down. Got him! Woohoo! I definitely am a bad dude. Yeah. So that's Bad Dudes. That's in this range of these My Arcade games, this one is something kind of special, I think. When I first looked at these My Arcade micro units back in the first video, I gave them across the board 4.5 tokens out of 5. But because we're looking at them a little closer, I like to give each one a rating. So if you're going to pick some up and you don't want to buy them all, they tend to cost about 25 bucks a pop. You know which ones are better than the others. So let's start with Galaxian. I love Galaxian, and I love that they gave it its respect. George from GenXGrownUp is a huge fan of its little brother Galaga, which is great, but having Galaxian in the collection is fantastic. The reality, though, is it is a simpler game, but it's a great version of that game, so I'm going to give it 3.5 tokens out of 5 for Galaxian My Arcade Micro. If you feel like getting some Galaxian on, you will not be disappointed with this handheld version. Even though it's not an arcade ROM, it is a faithful recreation of the game from the NES version, so if Galaxian is your jam, I wouldn't hesitate. Moving on then to Bad Dudes. As I said before, this really could have been something special, and I think it was. The fact that Bad Dudes is not your typical arcade game, it came out a little later in the arcades. At the risk of beating a dead horse, it's not the arcade ROM. That was very obvious. But the more I played it, the more endeared I was to this version of Bad Dudes. It doesn't scroll as smoothly, and maybe the moves aren't as dynamic as I'm used to in the arcade version. But if you want to play some Bad Dudes and don't want to fire up an emulator, this is really cool. I think that Bad Dudes My Arcade Micro, I'm going to give this 4.5 tokens out of 5. This stands out amongst the others. The controls are serviceable. It's got both the jump and the punch button. And the fact that this is a longer form game means that probably over time you might get more enjoyment out of this Bad Dudes game than you would one of those more static games like a Galaxian or a Pac-Man. If you think you're interested in picking up any of these My Arcade Micro machines, we've put links down in the description. You can click right on those and find them at Amazon. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye. GenXGrownUp is dedicated to bringing you new Generation X inspired videos every week. Here are a couple more you can watch right now, but for even more, subscribe and enable those notifications. And if you love what we do, we invite you to support us over on Patreon. And of course, your feedback in the comments and a quick thumbs up are always appreciated.